we're gonna answer the question of what is soul. Many people keep asking this question, so we decided that we're gonna do a deep dive and explain not only what is soul, but how the soul relates to the other parts of you, all right? Because you're made up of many different things, and today we're gonna go into that. Now, before we get started, remember to subscribe to OSM Vision. Yeah, that is the channel where you get all the information you need about anything, because you can ask us anything. And also remember to hit the notification button, yeah, hit the like, and also share our videos. We thank you for doing that because it really helps us. All right, let's get into what is soul. What is, we can say a soul, all right? The word soul is very important because like everything else, it's energy, okay? Energy, everything can be translated into some form of energy in some way or other. So when you say soul, the word soul in different languages, for example, if you look into Spanish or other languages, you see the word soul spelled like this as well. And then when you add the word or the two letters at the end, A-R, yeah, you get the word solar. Now, solar relates to the sun, yeah? That's very important. And when you say the sun, we know that the sun, right, is actually energy in the sense of hydrogen. Now you look at the periodic table, yeah, hydrogen and helium, because ultimately it's energy, all right? Now the word solar is actually composed of two people's names known as Solarina. Again, remember, we always say, don't believe us, do your research and check things out. So Solarina is what got shortened to solar for the sun. And when we look at energy, let's say anything you think about, even numbers, right? So we start from number 9, going down, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And you can also go to the -1, -2, etc. This is important because you're dealing with a scale. And when you're dealing with scales, if you take like anything else in terms of, let's say, colors, yeah, colors, sound, light, yeah, colors, sound, light, all of these have variations or scales, even when you're dealing with music, okay? So in the basic music alphabet, if we take, say, the C, which is the white keys or the easiest key for most people to be able to comprehend, right? So we say the music alphabet, right? You go from, let's say, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. Now you could start from A and go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then you're back to A, just so that it's more familiar with the way people learn the alphabet. So in the music alphabet, these will also be referred to by numbers or degrees, yeah? So when I say scale and degree, A, B, C, right? The reason I added that is because you can go from, instead of going from A as we would normally say the alphabet, we can start from C to C. And we would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then this is an octave, but we'll say 8, and then it starts again. So if you carried on, the next number, D, will be, you know, referred to as, you know, the 9. We can keep going. So we could go in different degrees or in scale. So we call this the C major scale, right? So the word scale is important. When you look at or think of something as a scale, what we're also really looking at is a very important word that we're going to get into, which is density. And density, scale, degrees, right, can be synonymous. So degree, because even when you look at studying, when you get to like higher education, yeah, they look at this as you getting your degree, or you say your first degree. Then you might have your second degree, which will be like maybe a master's degree, and then you can go on to, you know, higher levels of study. But the point is, degrees, scale, density are all very important words that we're going to look at in dealing with the question of what is soul. Now, if we were to draw a diagram, all right, let's say this is a person, okay, a very basic drawing, of a person, and then you think of you as a person, and you have your physical body, all right? But then you have other parts of you as well. So let's say this is your physical, and then you have, another one inside, which you might look at as your spirit. You have layers or degrees, yeah? So you have your physical body, your spiritual body, your soul body. So when you're looking at yourself, it's like an onion, peeling off an onion, right? With the onion, you got different layers. So you can have many parts of you. So your skin, right, which is an organ. The word organ, again, is very important. Organ, because it deals with, when you say organ or organs, it relates to music as well, because an organ is a musical instrument. All right, so you got your skin, you've got your muscles, you've got your skeleton, you've got your red blood, white blood cells, your nervous system, you've got your electricity that runs through you. And when we say density, scale, degree, we're dealing with polarity as well. Polarity. What does that mean? It means that on a degree or a scale or density, right, you will have from one end, so you have a middle point and you go in one direction, which, as I did here, going up, right? So you go in one direction, going up to 9. Why 9? Because 9 eventually will go to the highest number you can get to, 9 to the 9th power of 9. And then from 0, going the other way, you get to, minus numbers. The same with polarity, where you'll have, let's say this is plus, and then going this side, you'll have minus, or some people say negative and positive. And when you look at yourself, it's the same way, that you have energy that is emitting from you, right, from your different layers. And this is due to the electromagnetism that you generate from the electricity that's also running through you. So when we're saying layers, you have to look at everything that it goes in one direction and then gets to a point where it will go the other way. But the middle point is where you balance the two sides. So we can go in terms of when we're talking about ether. Ether is important because you also have, in what I was saying here, you also have an etheric body, right? The ether you. So you have a physical body, spiritual body, a mental body or mental being. You have a plasmatic body. You have a liquid body, different types of liquid, water in you, blood, different blood types like your white blood cells, your red blood cells, and you have your etheric you. So when we're starting to talk about your soul, you have also what people refer as chakras, yeah, which is a Sanskrit word that really relates to a spiral or a circular energy, right? Yeah, that runs through your system. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right. So again, dealing with layers, right? So these energy points also relate to different parts of you, in the sense of, like, when you start to deal with you as a being and why you give off a particular vibration. Again, that's another word, vibration, frequencies, yeah? Vibration, frequencies, all of these things. I'm going to keep emphasizing scale, all right? Degree, polarity, density, okay? Everything you look at, let me just pull up, for example, these are some of the things that we're going to look at as well. Things like, I'm Googling, you can do this as well, the periodic table of elements, okay? Pull that up and you see the images that deal with the different elements that make up the world as we see it. So this goes from, that's not a very clear diagram. Let me see if I can find another one. The world as you know it is composed of, okay, this is a much better version, all right? So the world as we know it has been defined in terms of the periodic table, right? So I'll leave that up. Let's also open up what we call the electromagnetic spectrum. You can hear the word electro and magnetic. So electro, right, refers to the electricity, okay? Now, when you start to look at electricity, in the range of the electromagnetic spectrum, what you will find, let me find an appropriate diagram that shows you visually. Okay, let's use this one. So the electromagnetic spectrum is dealing with the spectrum of the, like, deals with light and other aspects of the spectrum, right? So here you can see we're dealing with, like, you can see, for example, the visible spectrum. You got the visible spectrum, you got wavelengths and energy, and within that spectrum, you can see here that you've got many waves, right? So you have a wave. What is a wave? So when we look at a wave, you've got different types of waves, right? But the sine wave, which is the one that most people are familiar with, which looks like that, right? So you go up and down, right? Now, again, that shows you the different points of the up and the down, right? Plus, negative, the moving, the oscillation. All right, so within the electromagnetic spectrum, you have radio waves, microwaves, right? And you got infrared. These are all waves and things that are happening. Like I said, already mentioned the visible spectrum. The visible spectrum is, as you can see here, really dealing with nanometers, right? So a nanometer is measuring with very tiny measurement amounts. So a nanometer is like thousands of meters. So you can see the visible spectrum, which is normally like between around 500 to 600, 700 nanometers. Then you got ultraviolet rays or light. So violet again, right? When you're dealing with the sun, and you have UV, right? That's what UV, you're dealing with the sun. And when you look at like the rainbow also has degrees of colors, okay? And the highest one being the, people say ultraviolet, but it's really the color purple, but they say it's ultraviolet, right? This is where you start to get harmful rays damage your skin. Then you have X-rays. X-rays is when obviously you go to hospital, there might be something wrong with you on the inside, or you might have broken the bone, and they use a machine to X-ray, because these rays can penetrate and go through, yeah, the skin without damaging the skin, but to be able to look inside and see where the, say, the bone is broken, for example. Then we have, going higher, you have gamma rays, okay? Now, when we look at color spectrum, so you can see the various colors, including how light is put through a prism to give you the various colors. Now, these colors relate to the level of vibration or the frequencies, okay? So when we're talking about the soul, that's the main subject for today, but I wanted to tie in how it all relates to the levels of going from, let's say, the lowest in terms of vibration, say 1, going up to 9, or 9 to the 9 power of 9, dealing with ether as the highest, and you got ethers all throughout the various degrees. In music, as I said before, you got from 1 to 8, but if you play all those notes together, you get a separate sound. So in the key of C, we would go from middle C, we go, right? So that's C to C. But if you were to play all those notes together, that's a unique sound in itself, because it has all the notes being played at once. Gives you the 9th note. So looking at the color spectrum, again, with color, you have the primary colors. The primary colors, and it's important because when you look at these colors, when I'm saying density, you can see how, like, you can look at a green, but there are millions or variations of green as there is red. So when we say, what are the primary colors? Just Google it. It tells you the 3 primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. And when you look, all the other colors, right, are a combination of putting these 3 primary colors together. And as you can see in the middle, right, in the middle you have, if you combine all the colors, you get black. See, right? So how do you get, say, orange, for example? You get orange from mixing red and yellow together, right? How do you get green? You get green from mixing blue and yellow together. You see, how do you get this violet, right? Which people call purple. You mix blue and red together. And then in the middle, it shows you that by mixing all of them together, you get black, all right? And then the opposite to that, yeah, if you look at these two, see, it shows you the shade or the degrees from like red going all the way to violet, all right? And then this is showing you that white light is the opposite, obviously, to black light. So when you put white light through a prism, this is a glass prism, and we're gonna go into more detail about the prism because we actually have a part of that called the prism. All right, we have a part of that that deals with the soul, which we'll be looking at. Right, here you go. So we have the prism. Okay, we're gonna look into that. Then we're gonna look at this part of that called soul, spirit to explain the different aspects of you. Then we're gonna look at the spirit because we touched on, let me just write them down. So we have the physical. There are many parts to you, right? We got the physical you, which we would look at as your physical body, right? Then we got the spiritual you, or your spirit. So we've got the physical, we've got the spirit, we've got the soul, the one we're gonna look into. Then you got your mental, and then as you go on, you got your ether or your etheric body. In our language, this is the arc, right? And we're gonna look at you got two parts of the soul, two parts of the spirit. And with each one of these, right, sticking to what I keep saying about density. What is density? So density is that even though you have layers, right? Layers. You might have, as we said, red in terms of colors, in terms of the primary colors, right? We've got yellow and blue, okay? You might just think of one color when we're looking at, sorry, it's meant to be red, blue, and green, not yellow. No, I was right. Green, blue, and red. Okay, green, blue, and red. Green. But the point I was making is that, RGB, that's how you remember it. There are millions of variations or densities of each one of this. So there could be like a million reds, a million greens. And when you look at the layers in terms of ethers, even though you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, each one of those has depth, okay? And it's the same when you're starting to look at your physical body in terms of your physical, the spirit, the soul, the mental, the etheric. Now with the mental, I'll put it over here. We have something called a mental reservoir. The mental reservoir, right? Where it's outside, but you tap into it or you connect to it. Just as the ether is outside and you also connect to it. Your soul is also, okay, when I say outside and you connect to it, it's both in and out. So these are also realms. Okay, let's write that down. So you've got realms, and realms, you have dimensions, another important word to remember, right? Dimensions and planes. And when I put this first degree, master's degree, and third degree, like, you know, you might go on to do a PhD or something, right? The 1, 2, 3 is very important, like the red, green, blue, which is also 1, 2, 3, okay? When you're looking at learning the alphabet again, for example, you have, you know, like A, B, C. So there's always like the basic foundation. So when I'm saying that the realms here, you're connected to these realms. So you've got a physical realm, you've got a spirit realm, the soul realm, the mental realm, the etheric realms, right? And these realms go in degrees in terms of density, and they deal with the scale where you can go, let's say from hot, right? Let's say from hot to cold. But there's a middle point, which would be just right. Like when you're mixing water, right? So you can have cold water, like when you've got a tap, you can mix cold water and hot water. Or you can go from, you know, in terms of the colors, you can go from black, yeah, to white, or the other way around. And then in the middle, you'd have the grays or the gray. So again, even when we're dealing with extraterrestrials, you have races that relate to the black races, and then you've got those that relate to the white race, and then you've got in the middle the grays, which are mainly known by, you know, people that have been abducted, etc. So it's not a black or white thing. Now it's more of a gray thing. But the point is that when you start to look at your soul, yeah, everything is a part of you physically, and it's also outside of you, and you are linked or connected to these different parts if your part is active and working and able to make that connection. Okay, so the mental realm, so everyone's got a brain, but the way you connect to the mental realm is if your mind, if your mind, we say your or the mind, is working and active and able to connect to the mental reservoir, right, which is in degrees. So depending on you as a person, if these parts of you are not activated or are not functioning or have been damaged and they're not working, then you're not able to access the higher levels or the higher degrees of these. So to have a soul means that the soul part of you or the energetic part of you, which is referred to as soul, if it's activated properly, then it will connect to the soul realm and you're able to function and do the things that a soul allows you to do. Just as your mind, if your mind is working properly and there's nothing wrong with it, and you're able to access the higher parts of the mental reservoir, you're going to make more advantage of what you're getting on the higher level. This is why I keep saying about density. Now, you are in charge, as in you also have your ancestors and beings that can make you up in terms of, now we're dealing with DNA, okay? Because DNA is also a part of you, and we can pull that up as well. Let's look at what most people know as the double helix, the double helix. And remember how all of these, when we show them in terms of images and diagrammatically, you start to see how the colors relate. When you look at the double helix or the DNA strand, as it's really, again, you see the wave, right? And then it obviously goes the other way as well. So, and then I haven't done it very symmetrical, but you can see that in the diagram. Then you have these, what you call the ACGT, right? This is the letters that, depending on how they're arranged, AC. Now, when you look at these codes, ACGT, because those are the ladder, right, along the DNA strand, all of this relates because your DNA is what makes you up. How many chromosomes you have. Like, for example, you look at an X chromosome, you have at the end of your X chromosome or Y chromosome, you have telomeres, right? And the telomeres determine, so the DNA relates to your X and Y, or XX if you're female. The Y deals with the male, because that defective or the stem, one of the stems was broken to form male, right? So that's the male and that's the female. So depending on how these are arranged, it's like code, it's like programming. You can get different results by just different arrangements. Now, what's interesting is that if you look at these letters and then look at the music alphabet or music, because music ties into sound. Sound and light can be converted from one to the other. Colors come by way of the vibration of these lights. So when you look at ACGT, you see that this is odd, the T, because these three, you can find them on the musical alphabet. The A is there, the C is there, and the G is there. But there's no T. And that's because that should really be a D. But that's a little bit out of the scope of the video. And I know the board is starting to look complicated, but it's because all of these things relate to the soul. They all relate, right? Because your soul is the part of you that means that if it's active and connected to the soul realm, and when I said planes, I didn't really explain that. The planes, again, are the levels of vibration or the subtleties between what you're calling as I said, the density or the scale, or if you want to use words like, like I keep saying, like density, scale, degree, degrees. Degrees is like you go up in degrees. So in, say, religion, for example, one of the things they say, Islam, they will tell you about the 1, 2, 3, right? So the lowest material plane or the physical, they would refer to that as Nasut, okay? Nasut, the realm of human. And then you go up and they will say the next level they refer to as Malakut. where they say the angels or the malaika, the realm of the angels. And then the third level they will say lahut, right? Which is dealing with where they would say, all right, you got the realm of physical beings, the material plane for humans, the realm of the angels, and then the above one will be the realm of who they will call Allah, or the Most High, or the highest being. This is why everything just ties into this, as I said, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. You know, we go black, white, gray, primary colors, red, green, blue, or like you go hot, cold, but then you have the middle part. Everything you think of is in levels of degrees or density. So let's start to read a bit about the soul. I'm going to read from this part of that called soul, soul, spirit, spirit. Right, so likum, my beloved Nuapu Karadu, Nuapian children. You asked about the soul and spirit. Do you know and remember all I said to you of them, and you as females and males, right? Obviously male and female slightly different in terms of the XX and the XY. So it says, I told you of Ba'a, right? So Ba'a would be the soul, yeah, one of the souls. Now, the other one is Rawa, which you can again find in the religious books, or they say Ruha, right, which deals with the breath. So he says, I spoke to you about the Ka'a. So when we're dealing with the spirit now, we're dealing with the Ka'a or the Nafas or Nafish. Yeah, again, you hear those words in religion. So you have Nafas, which is the spirit. So this is again, so these two are dealing with the soul. This is dealing with the spirit, okay? And then the etheric being, I'll put it up here because I think we're running out of space. This is the arc, yeah? This deals with the etheric. But you also have two parts of that, which the second one is the khu, all right? Why is all this important? Because these parts of you are what gives you your existence, okay? So you're not a simple being. We're not simple beings. And what I said, the who here, that's the over being. That's the etheric being, and that's the over being. And then the ba'a, yeah, when we're talking about your soul, the ba'a is what we refer to as the creative expressional you, okay? So if you're creative and able to express creativity, it means that your solar plexus, remember what I was saying, tying to the sun, because the sun, so one of these energy centers is referred to as the solar plexus. None of the things we say or teach, we make up, because you are involved in the learning process. So you can just Google it, solar plexus, and if you pull up the images, see, there are diagrams that indicate and show you where your solar plexus is. And these tie in to the other higher parts of you, right? So as you can see from this diagram here, when we're referring to these, what we're calling chakras, right? When we're referring to them, you can see that they refer to as the root, right? Remember we say the root when you start from the bottom. In music, that number 1 degree, the first degree, we refer to as the root. So when you're a musician and playing in a key, a song would have the root, or what's like, would you ground everything on? So as I was playing the scale before, if you're playing in that key, you can pretty much play all the white notes and all the you can play all the chords within that scale and make music and form different emotions and tensions and releases, okay? Then as you climb up, you have, you know, you see here, the solar plexus is the one that is superimposing just beneath, or what you call your belly button. And the lower vibrations, because again with the scale, the lower the vibration is slow and it's more dense, meaning that things in terms of density, things are more solid or harder as they come down. And as you go up, it's faster, the vibration. That's why, again, I put vibration, frequencies, and these are things that you can feel. And when you start to deal with frequencies or waves. Like this is quite like a wave can be very short, as we were saying in terms of nanu. Some of these waves, when you start to deal with the elements, they can go right through you, go through, you know, walls, go through metal, go through certain aspects and don't damage or hurt you. So you are exposed to so many frequencies and vibration daily, and some of those will have a positive effect on you, and some of those will have a negative effect on you. Some of those can go through you and not harm you, like how we were talking about the x-rays. When you get an x-ray that goes through your tissue, takes a picture. Most of the, you know, you take a picture which involves light, and light then can capture, you know, what's going on. This is why even when they're looking into space and going into, you hear them talk about the Higgs boson, they talk about dark matter, talk about dark energy. This is when they're going deeper into space with a camera, right, known as a telescope, like the James Webb telescope, to take pictures. Because when you take a picture, you're taking a snapshot of what's happening. Even when people take a picture of you, they're capturing that reflection of light that then reflects to give you the image. And light is obviously measured in what? Photons, okay? So when you start to look at breaking you down as a being and what you're composed of, you know, you can go to the atoms, and as you know, with an atom, you have a nucleus, yeah? And then you have what they used to say, you got the protons, and then you have an electron that circulates. But now they've delved into, so that will be the electron. They started to go deeper and deeper when you're dealing with quantum mechanics or quantum physics, meaning that you're breaking things down smaller and smaller to try and understand what it's composed of. And no matter how small they break it down, in terms of, you know, I was showing you the periodic table, right? When we look at the periodic table, they used to think, right, going on this scale again, that when you look at coming this direction, they used to say that H1, yeah, these are elements. When we start looking at photons, electrons, and going into what, you know, the nucleus of a proton is, they used to say hydrogen coming this way, and then they'll say H1, H2, going that way till you get to like C6, which deals with carbon, and then going this way. Each one of these has a counterpart, all right? So the counterpart of H1 will be E1 on this side, going into the etheric realm, and H2 will be E2 going in that direction, okay? Going all the way down to, you know, the 9 levels of ether till you get to a point where they're saying, well, what is holding everything together? So let's keep going. So the parawa, which is the second part of your soul, is the breath, yeah? The breath of living being. So if you breathe, that process is keeping you alive. It's taking in remember again on the electromagnetic the periodic table, you got oxygen, yeah? Oxygen, which keeps you alive. So you take in oxygen to breathe, and then you give out what? Carbon dioxide. And that carbon dioxide is where the burning is taking place. The ka'a is the second part of your, what we call spirit, where that is dealing with the exoplasmatic you, right? So that's dealing with the plasmatic you, because you are made up of many, many different aspects, all right? So if nothing else, I hope that that's made it clear that you've got two souls, right? Or two parts of what you call your soul, the ba'a and the rawa or ruach. And then you've got two parts of the spirit, and then you have the etheric you. Now, if you do not have that soul activated, meaning like it's not working, or it's burnt out, or there's no connection, no life force to make you be able to have that creative or expressional part of you, then you are still able to survive and live and vibrate, but on the lower aspects. So that will just deal with your physical body, your spirit, and your mind will still connect to the mental reservoir, but of a lesser degree. As is your ether, everything has ether, but ether again has levels or degrees. So everyone has the ability to try to be better at what they have access to. So your physical body, you can be better by just exercising, training, eating well, doing the things that will make your physical body as healthy or most potent as it is. It's the same with the spirit. The spirit attaches or deals with the spiritual realm, so you can actually have spiritual practices which deals with things that are above just dealing with the mundane physical things. So you have a bit more awareness, a bit more mindfulness, that you're connected to other sentient beings on that vibration, on that level. So in the religious world, a lot of the times they talk about the spirit, right? And they mix up the two, spirit and soul, because they don't realize they're two separate parts. So when we're talking about not having a soul, what can make one not have a soul? Complete disconnection from that aspect of you that connects to that soul realm, that gives you the ability to be expressive, creative, emotional, so you can feel and deal with things on the higher vibrations and frequencies that are coming from above down. Okay, now the etheric is the same, in the sense that ether is the highest. So when we look at any of these things that we've spoken about, whether we're talking about colors, sound, light, dealing with the different ethers, all of that is, the higher you're connected to the highest 9 ether, the more it's going to be of use to you. So the arc, it vibrates on 1 through to 10 levels, right? Because remember, even though I've got 1 to 9, when you start going further, the 10 is just a start again of 1. So, you're going to go 10 and then go back up to, 11, 12. But these are just like starting another level from the 9, again, another cycle, because everything starts off really tiny when we're dealing with, like when you start going deeper into what's inside the nucleus of, the proton, the electron. So we go like into what they call subatomic, where you have biaps, zeelies, or they will tell you about quark, as they would say, the quarks, biaps, zeelies. This is all the ethers going further and further. But no matter how far they go, they're still mystified by what is holding everything together. And that is ether, 9 ether. 9 ether is the highest, or the combination of all the existing gases, elements, both. Some are conscious, and to be conscious is not always only dealing with us as human beings, because you have other beings that are conscious. And again, we have another part of that called conscious being, right? The conscious being, which goes into that, because when we say being, most of the time people think about human beings. But I'm going to read a little bit from conscious being and deal with the planes. It says, the spiritual planes are operating at 180 degrees to this physical plane you see. You see this on the drawings in ancient Egypt. The realm of the Mawat, or the dead, is always upside down and backward. The realm of the living, Ashtar Isis and her sister Nababtat Hatat Nephthys, both Nathartui, deities of life and the underworld, and seen with their wings also portrayed facing in opposite Tadror directions. The dualism theme is reversal, as above, so below. Okay, so so it's kind of dealing with this, like I was saying, hot and cold, or as we say, if you look at this, as above, so below. So everything you see on what we would call the physical has an opposite reflection on the other side. The same as I was saying here, going from cold to hot, etc. on the scale. All right. This is why when you look at the pyramid, you're really seeing the diamond. And then if you keep going, because this starts to tie into geometry and how this ties into this double helix that I was talking about before. But as above, so below. But it can continue. So when you start to look at geometry, you start with a dot which extends outwards when you form a line, because to form a line you just have several dots connected, right? But that dot will eventually meet up with itself and become a circle. I know I'm just drawing these things rough, but you can see the diagrams, a circle. And if you break a circle into, because you can go up, down, and to and fro, and you can literally see that each one of these becomes, if you actually turn it inside out, becomes a square. All right, let me see if I can try and make that visible. So yeah, if you took a square, let me move out the way so you can see that. I'm literally running out of board space, but if we take a square, okay, and divided it up so that you can see, it'll be better if you look at it symmetrically, but you can see that circle now. So that one side turned the other way gives you that, see, and vice. So now you take the square, the circle and the square, they're exactly the same mathematically, as you know, because a circle is 360 degrees and a square is also 360 degrees, right? Because you get the 490-degree angles that give you 360 as well. And the two together, so you'll have this polarity that I'm talking about, where you go from the unseen, right? The circle being the spiritual side, and then the square being the seen or the physical side. So you always have these two sides, and then the middle part. So you go from unseen to seen, or etheric to physical. Right, let's keep going. So in the conscious being that gives you the two opposite directions, the dualism theme is reversal, as above, so below. Or when you're standing on an orb, right, such as the earth, which is not at the bottom of the Wahoo Makwan or universe, there is no real up or down. Yeah, so if you're standing here on the planet, as you see, because people will say, for example, that God is up, but if you're standing here, up to you is that way. If you're standing here, right, I'm drawing you back, like backwards or upside down, up to you is going to be that way. So it doesn't make sense. And if you were standing on this side, because remember that you're dealing with magnetism and dealing with gravity that is pulling you down, and there's that pulling and pushing, or expansion and contraction, right? That's why it doesn't make sense for people to say that, you know, heaven is up, because if you're here, then heaven is down that way, isn't it? And if you're there, heaven, but there's no such thing as up. This is what he's saying here. Parnabab Yanun is saying, verse 3, the dualism theme is reversal, as above, so below. Or when you're standing on an orb such as Taha, earth, which is not at the bottom of the Wahoo Makwan universe, there is no real up or down. You're not at the foundation of anything. You're in a state of something. That's such a profound statement. You're in a state of something. So that's why I say about density and the state of mind you're in, the state of ether, the state of your spiritual being, the state of your physical being. Everything relates to the state, because that state has a vibration, and that vibration then leads to how you react with the emotions and everything that comes with that state of mind or that state that you're in. So a lot of things are controlled by your mind, meaning that you give yourself hell, and you can say you're in a state of hell. Not necessarily have to be in a place, a physical place, but giving yourself mental hell. Okay, so let's keep going. So the theme of dualism is not a fact by generating out of itself to become, as ancient Egypt was called, the two lands, or Hatat Ka Pata, above, Hatat Ba Pata, below, or Shamal, north, and Janab, south, on the same Kawak planet. So also is heaven and hell, up and down. So many times when one speaks of heaven or docking points, the word heaven is really haven, a harbor or refuge, and can be from outside your being to your innermost being inside. How can you standing on an orb that is out in space, not all the way up or all the way down, have an up or down, heaven above or hell below, right? So next is created the dual realities, or good versus bad, or wawed, good, and dawi, evil, as if there is extremes of each other. 10. When in fact, again, they generate out of one another from a single point. 11. How can Sachen, hot, How can bared, cold, is bared cold, and which is the center? Again, going to what I was saying here, cold and hot, warm or cool. So the center will be the warm or the cool because of the mixture. At what exact point do you start and in which direction? 13. They have created temperature meters as cold in a drop of temperature down and hot as a raise in temperature up. So in this form of thing, hot or hell is rising upward and cold heaven is dropping downward. Mental deception and confusion on hell, but many heaven. You see, as you read religious Safat books, you see it uses patat art, heavens, with a plural S. 16. Yet when it speaks of hell, it's a single hell or one place. The deception is in their use of binary or twofold double star, two stars revolving around the same center of gravity that translates into a force that has both wawed, good, and dawi, evil, or muhtat, God, and mudwa, devil. What is the central force? 18. Or being you and your choice. So in fact, you create what is wawid, good, and what is dawi, evil. Who or what is God and who or what is the devil? Generating out of the central point in space and wakat. All right. And now in ancient Egypt, this fact is included. You have pa khatat. Okay. The khatat is the body, the physical body, and which is linked to the pa kha'a, the spirit person, or rational or conscious existing being. And then you have the pa ba'a, the soul, which is the emotional and conscious being. And then you have the pa akh, okay, aka the akh, which is the ethereal being, the creative astral being, which existing as a link to realities, a craft called the black bird, and is called by a person the real secret name. The Archak, etheric being, is in degrees of Sakham or power. So I keep saying about remembering about the degrees, because the degrees of power. So when you're looking at degrees, you're really saying degrees of power or potency. Everything I kept saying at the beginning, you have to look at it as degrees or levels. So you can have a soul that is in degrees, or you can have a spirit that is in degrees, or you can have physical bodies that is in degrees. All right, so let me read that again. Verse 20. The Arch or etheric being is in degrees of Sakam, power, from the weakest one ether, right? So from one ether here, from the weakest one ether all the way to 9 ether up here. And on the opposite side of the 180 degree of ether. I was saying here, see, this is 180 degrees. If we were to look, you know, like if we were to put a protractor, yeah, this would be like 180 degrees, yeah. So on one side of the 180 and the opposite is the ether. 21, we come in contact with energy from hydrogen, yeah, from one hydrogen to 9 levels, which subdivide by biaps, yeah, by biaps, ziads, or people say zeelies, ziads, even lighter forms of hydrogen atom, weightless existence or gas, ghost at H1 or atomic weight of hydrogen. A colorless gas begins and links to E1 or subatomic weightless E1 or ether. So when we say the Riskians, for example, who elevate to the point where they are pure etheric energy or pure etheric energy being, they are weightless. And mass and weight is very significant when you're dealing with, if you add too much, say, weight to the planet, it will have an impact in terms of vibration. And when you add something, you have to take something away to maintain the balance. All right. So these beings, they can come here and they're weightless. They can personify and slow down their vibration, because in order to reach the highest level of ether, from the lowest level, you have to be able to transform and turn yourself inside out from being a physical being. But you need each one as you going up. So you need your physical body, you need your spiritual, but most importantly, to reach the higher levels of 9 ether, you need your soul. And if you don't have a soul, you cannot transcend or go to the higher level. And this is why each part of you is absolutely important for you to work on. to perfect yourself. 22. Ether, called a substance or fluid that fills space, used as an aesthetic to render one unconscious, or energy in motion, energy, vigor, force, or activity. If you don't have that, then you don't have motion or energy that is it's a force or that has vigor, or like I was saying, you're able to connect, to tap into that soul realm where a lot of us black, or what people call black, or refer to as soul people, or soul music, or having like the ability to be colorful and creative and, you know, dance, which ties into the music, etc., etc. All right, let's keep going. So 23, it's understood in a sleep state or ethereal state, one containing all memory. 24, one can't lie to oneself or about oneself. An identity takes you to the realm of true form and images, recollection or dreams. 25, the revelations of your subconscious mind, yeah, because even when we're dealing with the mind, as in a mental reservoir, right, you have different variations of it, like the subconscious to the conscious mind to the superconscious mind. So that's what I kept emphasizing about, you know, words like scale, degree, density, right? Degree, density, scale, because everything has variations. All right, so 25, the revelations of your subconscious mind linked to the Pa'ut, right? So when you get to the highest you can go, we say the Pa'ut, right? We say the all expanding, the all expanding. Or we can just say simply the all, the all, Pa'ut, the all. 26, this is very important now to tie it all in with your body, your soul, your spirit, your etheric being, okay? At the physical death of Khatat, the body, right? The Ba'a, the soul, and the Ka'a, spirit, are separated. And after 70 days, they are reunited. 27, if they are unable to reunite, then the Ba'a, the soul, will continue onto higher planes alone, leaving the Ka'a, the spirit, and all sense of personal attachment to fade or gradually disintegrate into nothingness. That's a loss of soul to its higher link, or the Pa'arha, the etheric self. Yeah. 29. This is what will happen to all who give or lose their Ba'a, their soul, as it says, as did the Canaanites. So when we say the Canaanites don't have a soul, if you read Joshua 5:1 and then read Genesis 6:3, it says that's where it tells you that they lost their soul, whose etheric being is too weak, and that means they can only reach up to ether 6 or 6 ether. Yeah. So the females can reach up to 6 ether, the males reach up to 5 ether, and cannot go ahead to the higher ethers of 7, 8, and 9. Now, why is that? That's because they compromise by mixing in with lower ethers or beings that are dealing with just the lower ethers, such as animals. And that's what happened, where they can only go up to E6, and that they don't have enough potency, that's not strong enough to go to what they call it, fly the heavens. So they do not receive their wings in order to go up and be able to reach to the point where they can be a pure etheric being. 30. This, for a Pata'ite or a Nagar Negroid, is considered a terrible fate, and that was the true reason for the ancient funerary rites, or the opening of the mouth ceremony, where they used to perform to help channel or spring that soul forth to go to Orion, or to the sky, or, you know, to reunite the soul with the spirit. All right. So that's, if you go and research the opening of the mouth ceremony, that's a ritual that was done in ancient Egypt. That state is called Asar, or Osiris. That is raise the Sakam, or the power of Pa'akak, the ether, all done in the 180 degree operating state as the DNA or the double helix are inverse worlds positioned at 180 degrees. So the unconscious soul, Ba'a soul, can be stolen to control your ether, yeah, your archon. This is verse 31. The unconscious soul, Ba'a soul, can be stolen to control your etheric being from your body while it is still alive. 32. If this happens, the conscious being of the Ka'a spirit person look the same, yet the Ba'a, the soul, linking them to their archon, the ether, weakens. The Sakam power becomes sluggish, and the person is reduced to the image of 6 ether beings. Yeah, so how does this happen? Well, this happens with the things you do. So, for example, all kinds of drugs, alcohol, caffeine, or alkaloid in tea and cocoa and coffee, as well as nicotine, or this poisonous oily liquid in tobacco affects you. Yeah. In addition to that, 34, the misuse of your genital fluids, and this is for both male and female. Staying up too late, for the melanin works for you at shadow hours. TV lights, they send out false colors or light which affect your melanin flow. 35, or the melanic black melanism or melanite, high explosive in your genes. So 36, hanging out all hours of the night in the red lights also drains your ba'a, your soul, yeah, and weakens your etheric being. This is what I'm saying, like where I've used the example of your soul being like a battery that has positive and negative, and if you drain that soul, yeah, if you imagine a battery, you know, you have like a plus and negative, right? The negative and positive polarity that charge that battery. If you deplete that energy completely, then you kind of lose its potency. So let me read that again. So 36, hanging out all hours of the night in the red light also drains your ba'a soul and weakens your archak, your etheric being. You become the living dead like 6 ether beings, and in time lose all ability to remember the past or operate within a subjective state of mind. 38. Under a trance or nawam, spell of sleep, ignorance of who you really are, as you replace it with his story, a wannabe, in the image of the man of sin, right? 2 Thessalonians 2:3. The man of sin is Zuen, Zion, Sion, sin, Nana sin, or Nanar. 39. To lose your akal mind, be out of your own akal mind, in another mindset, working for them, killing for them, sleeping and mixing with them. 40, or trying to be accepted by them, is to lose your very soul, your ba'a, and any chance of a continued anak life after this one. Okay, so let me just jump a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to jump to verse 61, right? Know that every event that takes place in the physical realm is imprinting a thought form onto the ethereal, yet most fade over time. 62, mortals, that is very physical humans, people that are vibrating on the lower side, on the physical realm, they live in the slowest frequency level, yeah, the lowest frequency level, and in the field of vibration as is to be expected. The higher levels in the field of vibration are composed of the faster frequencies. That's why I put here faster frequencies. This is the lower frequencies. And 65, entities that exist within these levels think and act much faster than those in the lower levels or slower planes. 66, and their mental states are much more unified in Pa'ut. So when you're thinking and vibrating on the higher frequencies, it's faster, but then you also are more united or unified with the Pa'ut, or the all, okay? It's more of, when you're dealing with the all, as we say, that's a group mind, yeah, called mental. So when you're dealing with the mental reservoir, those are people that are vibrating on the higher frequencies of the mind. As one descends through the field, gravity increases, dragging down thought into separateness, allowing for the development of individual consciousness. So this is where you start to be, me, myself, and I, or choice, will, and easy access by demon forces. Because once you've separated from the unified group mind, you're now easily influenced by forces of lower vibrations like demon forces. 68. They dwell on the lowest level, waiting to step into the katat or bodies, take over the akalat, take over the minds of these people that are on these lower vibrations, use their emotions. Then once they cause them to do something or say the wrong thing, they move on to the next shakhas, that's person. You can watch this in the movie called Fallen with Denzel Washington in it. 69. That's the inner voice that leads many to their death or to fight and even kill, and they walk in. 70. Many fights between lovers are caused by these lower level beings. Many dead who wish to feel life again, being trapped on a lower level, can't move on. They become evil forces and cause all kinds of events that lead to suffering. 70. They move on ill feelings. This is why emotions that are not checked, when you have ill feelings, anger, jealousy, hatefulness, envy, and so on, right? These are all lower forces, right? From here, from 5 ether down. These are down to the 1 ether, working on all physical elements, from hydrogen working on all cells. Because when you break you down in terms of your body, you start going into your molecular structure, your cells. And these cells, obviously, dealing with vibration and atoms, right? So these lower vibrations and lower beings that operate from 5 ether down, they are able to work on your physical body in the physical realm. 75. Now, how does it come about? Just as the sun, just as the sun up here, right, is composed of hydrogen. Remember I had it here, hydrogen and helium, H1, H2. Just as the sun is composed of H1 and He, or hydrogen and helium. 76. Hydrogen, atomic number 1, a colorless gas which combines with OH, OH here, oxygen. It combines with oxygen to form water, H2O. And helium, gaseous element, once H1 is changed into He, it burns and the sun is born. 77. Hydrogen fusing into helium, and you have the source of all physical life and light. So also on the other side of the elements or atomic construction, you have here ether 1. You have ether 1 and ether 2 combined to create spiritual life and light. 79. A class of organic compounds in which 2 hydrocarbon groups are linked by an oxygen atom, that's ether. So again, when we deal with ether, people may spell it like this, A-E-T-H, like that, or like this, A-I, which is dealing with breath, breathing. 80, you have the outer sun and you have your inner sun. 81, solar equals outer sun, right? So this outer sun deals with solar, and then you have the inner sun, which deals with your solar plexus, and that's seat of the inner sun. So soul relates to solar, relates to the sun, relates to the heat that keeps you alive, relates to your mental, because you're dealing with the electricity that helps to heat up your brain suit, or newt as they're referred to, which gives you the ability to think and vibrate on a higher vibrational frequency. And on the scale of going from 1 ether to 9 ether, you want to elevate and continuously rise in terms of frequencies, in terms of vibration, tapping into the higher realms. And everything has a scale or a degree where when you're dealing with you as a being, you have to cultivate and activate all these parts of you to raise up and vibrate on higher vibrations or frequencies, and everything relates. So if you want to be more spiritual, then you have to deal with the higher levels of spirituality or vibrations. If you have a soul, or if your soul is inactive, you have to do the things that are going to activate that. This is where Wu-Sabat comes in, by putting in the knowledge, because it's like you have to, as a computer system or any device, if you look at any physical device, whether it's a laptop, computer, or you're dealing with a mobile phone, it's only as useful as the apps, and the apps make it function. And so the same thing with Wu-Sabat. The scrolls are like the apps or the knowledge that you need to help you elevate, activate your soul to be able to, when you leave here, shed the physical body, that you can continue on to the higher degrees. And the aim is to become a pure etheric or Ethereal being, and that gives you the ability to transcend all the realms and personify, you know, and manifest physically as well as go back up. So everything is in degrees, vibrations, and your soul is that aspect of you that links you to be able to be limitless, all right? So I hope that's helped to clarify what a soul is. People keep asking, what is a soul? Soul is the energy part of you, because everything is ultimately energy, but it links you to all your other aspects to take you